mystery and horror, the air itself is filled with monsters.
Children of the night, what music they make. He's alive! He's alive!
Well, hello, all you monster fiends, and thank you for joining us for another deep dive factoid-filled episode exploring Hollywood's most famous monsters. I am your mistress of ceremony, Sam, and I am joined, as always, by Dan from Bleeding Marvelous. Say hello, Dan.
Rabid weasels. Hello, Dan.
Every week. It's getting to become every week.
Keep you on your toes.
Don't know what she's going to come out with. Well, hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Monsters Up North podcast. It's great to have you here. Tonight is going to be super duper fun. I cannot wait. But before we do that, a little bit of housekeeping. Just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has watched our 2 latest videos on YouTube. Love it. Thank you.
Yes.
Very much appreciate it. Let's keep it going. Join us. We're here every Monday. Also, a little bit of news that just broke today. Don't know how you're going to feel about this. Don't know if you've already seen it. James Wan is rumored to be remaking The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yes, I saw something about this the other day and it made me feel a bit sick.
Made me feel a bit uneasy.
I will say 2 things. One, I personally don't think that needs a remake, but if you're going to do it, my only caveat would be no CGI, all practical effects, and please don't make the female character overly feminist.
Because Julie Adams,
the whole point of her was not to be.
No, she wasn't.
To be a helpless female. So if you're going to change the story to suit today's, I don't know.
Just don't. Well, someone pointed out in the Facebook group, they're like, well, they've already remade it. It's called The Shape of Water. And I'm like, Sasha, I see that not as a remake, but as a reimagining of this great character that has been done with the most tasteful of all tastefulness. That creature suit is breathtaking.
Yeah.
And that's what makes Creature so goddamn special, is the suit, is the whole creation behind it. And I don't know how I'm going to feel seeing a 2024/2025 version of something that was a masterpiece in the 50s.
Yes, that's going to be a hard thing. I mean, as we well know, for those of you that can see, I love it that much. I've had Tattoo Creature.
She did.
For those of you that are on audio, go to YouTube and check out. I've got a Creature of the Black Lagoon.
Head over to Bleeding Marvelous on Instagram or on Facebook, and you'll be able to see said tattoo. It's amazing.
I think I have. Yeah, I can't remember, but yeah,
you did. I liked it.
Universal Monsters for both of us is how we started this thing, and Creature was our very first episode we ever did. So for me, it holds a special place for many, many reasons.
Massive.
But I won't shit on it on whole, because I think, to some degree, gotta wait and see. But when you start seeing the and someone will leak it, you'll start to see the drawings and the fits of what they think the creature's going to look like. And I tell you now, if they disrespect Millicent like that, I think I will go and shout at James Wan. He should know better.
That is what I'm worried about. Is because now we know this amazing story of this amazing woman who created this amazing creature. We don't want her legacy shit on. I think that's where I'm at with this.
With the Westmore. It's been shit on many, many times through that, through the years that she was actually physically alive and active. So for her to be shit on in her death, I think is an absolute travesty. So
yeah,
if he's respectful with it, I think See, but like I'm still not in a place where I think they need to remake Universal Monsters. They can reimagine, like you say, but remaking always makes it a little.
Because it probably is this podcast that has made my mind feel differently about things, is because I love Universal Monsters. I always have done. But since we've started doing this, I have found such a deeper appreciation and a deeper level of love for the movies, for the making of them, for the characters, the actors, like everything that goes along with it, to where I'm like, that was just perfect as it is. I love the fact that things get inspired by, like, the Monster Squad. Total inspiration from all Universal Monsters, and I love that aspect of it.
And
But
I
I
love that
don't.
they couldn't get the permits, so they went slightly off
Yeah,
on all of them, but it worked enough that
it was tastefully done.
Yeah, Gilman had the bottom jutting out more like an anglerfish, and then they dropped to the Widow's Peak on
Just tiny little
silly
touches.
little things, but it was enough that you were like, okay, they're respectful to the original, but they're not taking it to the point of where it's like
they're not taking the piss out, but they're not taking the piss out of it either.
Yeah.
I just don't feel. I don't know. Again, it's again down to this podcast. I don't want to see a remake of something that I already think is completely perfect. If they touch Invisible Man, I'm gonna fucking spit blood.
Well,
I'm not gonna lie.
They did that with Elizabeth. What's her name?
Well, apparently that was done really well and very. It was a different take on it. That from what my sister tells me, I've actually never watched it.
It starts with a Blum and has a house in it, I think. So I've seen it. I've seen it, and I have to say the ideas are clever. And transporting it into the modern day worked, but the reasons behind it all was just not. He wasn't maniacal enough. It wasn't about him. It was about her, and you weren't. So technically,
see, that's kind of
lost that.
Yeah, that's the Invisible Man Part 2. That's the Vincent Price. Because if you remember from our Invisible Man episode and all of my in-depth knowledge that I learned on there, the first one is all about him.
Yeah.
The second one is all about her, because he feels guilty for the way that he acted in the first one.
Yeah.
You fucking just do it. Do it, Hollywood, because I will go fucking apeshit. My favorite Universal monster up to a very long time was the Creature. I fucking adore him. I still do, but I don't know how the Invisible Man has managed to creep his way into my heart, because the fucker is implanted in there. Like, I think it's Claude Rains more than anything else. I love him. I love you. I do. He's right. Shit, Jar Jar moved. He's right there.
I'm jealous.
But yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up because it was literally, I just saw it come through today. It is also San Diego Comic-Con happening this weekend. NECA they are hot. They are hot this year. Some of the releases that they've released for Universal Monsters. Oh, Peter Cushing.
They're going to be dribbling those out because of the Epic Universe being finished for October. They want to get it up and running before October next year. Yeah. So obviously all these releases will be happening leading up to Epic Universe. That's why they're saturating the market again, because they're retaking a lot of the old copyrights again as well.
Yeah.
So what you have copyright on now, I think you'll be all right with, but the Epic Universe Universal Monsters do not look like Universal Monsters that we know.
No.
So
the license has changed, because this is Frankenstein is fair play, is fair use. So the licenses have changed in order to create that copyright.
Yep. And even Universal can't use the copyrights for their own characters to look like. You won't have a Bela Lugosi Dracula at Universal Studios at the Epic Universe. You've got a totally different version of Frankenstein is different. Well, the monster's different. Also, they have got a Van Helsing something to do with Van Helsing in there somewhere. It's all set in a like medieval town. Right. Frankenstein's laboratory's got all like Tesla coils coming out of it. I've seen on Instagram and TikTok there's a lot of like the where they do the artwork, concept art, yeah, and some of it just looks absolutely amazing. And then you see someone's flew a drone over the top. Holy shit! It's an entire park. I mean, you're looking at, you've got Islands of Adventure and you've got Universal Studios in Florida as it is. This is like a third park to this now. Because I know if you go to Disney, I think they've got 4 or 5. Disney's got 4 or 5 parks in the main park.
My understand. Oh no, because that's going to be Mario. So Marvel has to vacate because they no longer belong to Universal Studios. They are in Disney now. So they have to vacate, and I think we're talking about Florida here. Yeah. I can't say I think it's already starting to happen in LA. Mario is going to be where the Marvel section is.
Right.
But and then to the side of that is going to be the new section and it is going to be its own section. Even though the sizes of the sections that are already there are pretty huge. Like they're a decent size. You can spend a fair good time in there. Bearing in mind, I haven't been for years, so I've not seen any of the new Harry Potter stuff. To be honest, it'll be a whole different experience for me going back again, which I hope I'm going to do next year. But yeah, I just thought I'd bring it up because it literally came up today and I was like, oh, we have Universal news. Well, we never have decent news. So I'll get the disclaimer out the way with.
Okie dokie.
And then we're going to get into this fucking epic episode. So everything discussed in today's episode is our opinions and our opinions alone. If you'd like to discuss anything from today's episode, please come and join us on our Facebook pages, the Discord, or the comment section, where we can have an open discussion. But what we won't have is anyone coming for us and telling us our opinions are wrong, because we can all agree to disagree in fandom. So let's keep it fun, keep it kind, and keep the toxic behavior out of a nerdism.
Correct. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Don't be a dick. Bye-bye. Bye.
There you go.
Bye.
Sure. I've just realized how many times I say so. Now then, the Return of the Living Dead is a 1985 horror film written and directed by DanOBannon, his directorial debut. From the story by Rudy Ritchie, John Russo, and Russell Streiner, and starring, oh God, why these names? Clue Googler, James Cameron, Tom Matthews, and Don Calfa. Oh my dear God, I have not wrote a tagline down for this episode. So Monsters Up North brings you Return of the Living Dead. Wow. I got so excited about this episode because I scratched that out at the beginning when I'm writing my notes, and then I'll go in and add to it, and then I'll put the tagline in once I've seen the film. And I've been that excited, I haven't bothered.
Well, apparently, here's a fact for you. In a recently released book called The Complete History of the Return of the Living Dead, the Simpsons creator, Matt Groening, is it?
Groening, yeah, Groening.
He actually came up with one of the taglines they used for this film.
Oh.
And it's, they're hungry and they're not vegetarians. That's one that was used in the one movie trailer. There's a few versions of the movie trailer, like the voiceover, not the actual what you see, but that was one of them. And another one, first they want to meet you, then they want to eat you.
I love that.
There is another one that says they're back from the dead and ready to party. So there's 3.
Oh, I could have done that one.
Yeah, so.
Oh, hang my head in shame. I always make sure on a Sunday when I do the Nerdy Up North podcast, I always make sure I get the taglines in there before we even start talking, because they're my favorite thing. But yeah, I dropped the ball on this one. I didn't know what to expect from this film.
Yeah.
Until the first, it literally took 2 minutes. 2 minutes, and I'm like, it was the minute I saw July 3rd, and I went, I can actually say I get that reference now. I can actually say I get that, because I always see it come up on July 3rd.
Yep.
Every person who is a horror fan will put up that opening scene where it tells you the date and the time. Damn yous. Before we get into the actual film, I want to outline to the people the difference between, because the return of the Living Dead and say Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, because there is a bit of a difference and there is a bit of a story behind it. John Russo, who teamed up with George A. Romero to make Night of the Living Dead, decided that he came up with a sequel, and George came up with a sequel.
Yeah.
And they both went to each other with the sequels, and neither of them liked each of the sequels. So they made a decision to go off and do their own sequel. The only stipulation George had was that it had to be his version, or any version he does relating to his story had to start with the.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't. It was originally a book.
Yep.
That's where the treatment comes from, is a book. I don't think he had any intention of doing any films with it. But George wanted fuck all to do with it.
Yeah, the gist of it was John got return of. He was allowed return of. And then obviously George got the dead, I think it was, or something with those two words in. But return had to be John's. And John wrote the original treatment for the movie, and as a book, and DanOBannon came along, read it, and went, I hate this. What is this? I don't like it, and completely rewrote the script as we know it. I only kept the name of the book and kept Bert's character, and that was it. He binned the rest off and rewrote it himself completely. However, he still gives John Russo credits. They still get royalty credits for the movie and everything because he put his name in it. But yeah, DanOBannon himself is incredibly an amazing writer. He wrote some of the biggest movies you know today. It's thanks to this man. It's absolutely insane.
I actually read about him. He's a screenwriter, director, visual effects supervisor. So bearing in mind, he has wrote some, and Dan's going to give you the list, but he wrote some of the biggest movies. He also is a creator and part of some of the biggest movies that have ever been created.
Yeah, I mean, one of his favorite ones he did that he wrote for was he did Life Force, which we were talking about with Toby Hooper in our Toby Hooper episodes. If you go back to that, because Toby Hooper was originally written into this project, he was going to direct this project.
Yes, he was.
Then he left this to go do Life Force, and Dan had already written Life Force, so Dan had written it, and then Toby came off this to go and write Life Force. Dan got then offered to be able to do this as a director, so he took this on. But Dan has also written many, many other films like Total Recall, which is another one with Arnie. And there's a small film he did that I know a lot of people might not know, but it's called Alien.
Also, episode 2 of our
tiny little film. Don't know if anyone's heard of it.
We did a full episode on it, so
he literally wrote the screenplay for it. And he was so annoyed that they didn't offer him. I watched an interview with DanOBannon on YouTube, and he was saying, I was so angry they didn't offer me the directing job on that because that's all I've ever wanted to do, direct. And he said, I was just so angry. And then when they said Ridley Scott, and I saw how intelligent he was with how he did everything, he said, I was fine with it then.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm fine. Yeah. I'm take a back seat. He also worked on Star Wars.
Yep.
That was his special effects hat that he donned. He is the real deal. Like, that's how I explained it to Ant when I was talking about this director. I was like, he is the fucking real deal. And then I was like, he wrote Total Recall.
Yeah, he's a very, very clever man. And when he found out he got directing, the director of Return, he was offered that. He then went straight out, and instead of finding the cast or even getting to that point, he went to a guy called, I want to say his name was William Stout, and he was the director of he was like the oh god, I've gone blank. He was the production designer. And William Stout basically was the one who storyboarded everything with Dan and made the characters that we see now. Tarman was created by the two of them.
Oh my God.
Also Half Corpse Girl, she was created by the two of them, and they call him Jaundice Corpse. Those three characters, they're actually called principal corpses. He had a list of corpses and he rated them with how much screen time they got. So you're a principal corpse if you've got excessive amount of like screen time.
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
I've just choked on my own drink.
But yeah,
I'm so sorry, audio listeners, for the coughing.
There was a video, the one that he was talking about doing the directing on, and he was talking about how him and William were storyboarding it, and William got what he wanted straight away, except for he wasn't sure if he could pull off minutia. From what he'd seen of William's stuff, he wasn't really overly confident. So William, sorry.
Oh God, we're both at it. Are you okay?
This is killing me today. Sorry about that. Yeah, William basically said, I can do it. Look at this cover I did of this magazine. And Dan fell in love with it.
Take a drink. This is Coughs and Coals, brought to you by Nerdy Up North. This is not Nerdy Up North. This is Monsters Up North. What is wrong with me? My apologies.
Emotional.
Shall we talk about this fucking film? Because I am very excited. I'm going to tell you who my favorite character was, because I want to give an explanation as to why. It was Ernie.
Ernie the Nazi.
Yeah, the very subtle Nazi. Like, no, actually, he hid it quite well.
What gave it away? The Luger, the German march song he was listening to,
the German that he spoke later on. Yeah, Kettelbrunner. Have you got his ID tag there?
I've got a little ID tag. You can't really see it because of the light, but like,
oh, that's crazy.
It's done by Alley Cat Graphics.
I have a fair few of their beautiful pins. Yeah, there was something about Ernie, and I think it's because he's an embalmer, and I was like, oh, Ernie, you have my dream job right there. Let me learn more.
The thing that got me as well was I couldn't get past Bert and Ernie.
Yeah.
Bert and Ernie, it just kept coming up and up again and again. I was like, oh, for God's sake, Bert and Ernie, best friends. I
did absolutely love, is Frank's the young'un?
Freddie's the young'un, Frank's the old
Freddie, one. That's it. Yeah. That's it. So for all you Poltergeist fans, you will recognize him as the guy that I can't even talk. James T. Nelson. Is it James T. Nelson? J.T. Nelson? James T. Nelson? Mr. Incredible.
The dad
screams at in Poltergeist. He was phenomenal in this film. The physical comedy that came off him and Freddie was ridiculous. It was brilliant. So at some points I didn't know if it was intentional or if it was we're in the 80s and this is how they think they should be acting. But the more as the film got on and I started to get the humor behind it.
That is the one thing DanOBannon was trying to push. He said all the way through, he said the first film was so serious, but in the right way. Yeah. He said, and so I knew that I couldn't go down that route because we've been there. He said, so I wanted to make something that could be classed as a comedy. Mm-hmm. So to use it as an inception moment as well within the movie, because it actually happened within this is where it gets complicated, all right? If you break the movie down, Return of the Living Dead, they are basically keeping barrels from the government from the previous corpses that were in the original film, the Romero film. So they were transporting the corpses in these barrels and they accidentally ended up in Unida. and Unida has been storing these barrels for like 15 years down in the basement. And then they actually made a movie about it within the movie itself, which you never get to see, but it's alluded to that this movie happened, as well as it being a true story. So
yeah, it was incredibly meta, especially in the beginning part where he explains. So the movie starts on July 3rd, 1984. I get that now. Where you meet Frank and Bert. No, Freddie and Bert, sorry.
Freddie and Frank.
Freddie and Frank.
Freddie and Frank. Bert is there. Bert is
right. Bert is the owner, isn't he?
Yeah, Bert's the old guy who was the Western. most Westerns.
He infuriated me in some points, but okay. But in a funny way, it wasn't like
he had a reputation for being really angry on set. DanO'Bannon and him used to come to blows quite a lot. So Dan had the prop department swap out. You know, he has that iron piece of piping for a lot of it. He has a bit of piping. Dan had them swap out a real piece for a rubber one because he was proper like threatening people with all sorts. So
poor people. They're explaining they're having a conversation about the toxic gases.
Yeah.
And the whole, do you remember that movie? What was it Return of the Living Dead?
I don't think they I don't remember them saying what the name of the film was. I could be wrong, but my brain, I can't remember if they call it anything. They just say that film.
And I'm sure he references Return of the Living Dead.
It's possible, but
he says that was a true story.
Yeah.
Because we have the drums here.
Yeah, because he's asking him, isn't he? Freddie's basically this new guy that's been taken on to work in this medical warehouse, which is the Unida, whatever you need, warehouse. And Frank's been there since day whenever, so he's touring him around as Bert's left early for the 4th of July weekend. So Frank's touring Freddie around and he's showing him like all these things that are foreshadowing, like the half dogs and the corpses in the freezer and the Indian skeletons and the this, that, and the other. And so you're seeing all the things that you're supposed to be seeing, and then it comes to life while you're seeing those things again later.
Something's just crept into my head that's about to happen.
But yeah, it's the bit where they go in the freezer. And he says, "Oh yeah, I'll let the neighborhood kids come in here and poke it with a stick for a quarter." And I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Of course, because, well, look at who the kids are in that town. So, yeah, I can imagine they would. But what ends up happening is that Frank accidentally unleashes this toxic gas. And all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, because he does. He says, because Freddie says to him, they start doing paperwork, and Freddie says, "Well, what's the weirdest thing you've ever had come through here?" And he's like, "Oh, I'll show you. Come down and have a look at what we've got." And that's when you see the barrels. Now, there is a bit that I found about this. You see like a zombie shriveled face when they pull up the lid of the barrel, but it's behind thick glass.
Yeah.
And the way that they filmed this bit was that they heated the barrel so much so it was carved out of wax, the face originally.
Oh my God.
And so they heated the barrel, but in doing so, that's what cracked the glass. And it was an unintentional side effect.
Right.
Creating the melty wax, cracked the glass, and gave the sort of whole thing a more, I don't know, it was unintentional, that bit happening anyway. Yeah. So obviously then stupid Frank goes, "Oh, these things are indestructible, they're made by the army." Bang, psh, all the gas comes out of the canisters, and you're like, really? And then the two of them are choking to death and pass out on the floor. They're not dead, but
they're not dead. Well, they're not dead. But do we stay with them, or do we meet the gang?
Well, it stays with them for a minute because it shows the gas going around the doesn't it? Like it shows it filtering up into the corpse freezer, and it shows it going around the hall, and then all of a sudden it kicks to all the kids walking down the street.
Oh, the gang, the Scooby Gang. What a
misfits.
Oh my gosh, but there's one of them. Oh, I said I would remember his name. It's the black guy It's what's his name?
I can't remember his character name, but I know his real name.
What's his real name?
Miguel Nunez Jr.
Spider.
Yeah, that's it.
I
Spider.
fucking loved him so much from the second I saw him till the very end. He had me. He had me gripped. I don't want to say the guy this character's name because it's like a bit of a trigger, but like
Good
it was
job.
he was something. He was the speech he gives in the graveyard where he's like, this is not just a
Costume.
fad. This
It's
is
not
not
a
just a
costume.
fad.
It's a way of life.
This is my life. He takes it while he's getting an absolute rub down by a naked girl.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. There's this whole thing with, you might actually know the guy who played Spider from something else, and he's got one of these faces as he's got older that he's been in a lot of stuff.
Right.
Have you seen the movie Scooby Doo? James Gunn's Scooby Doo. Have you
I
seen
have
it? Matt Lillard.
I have not.
Well, there's this bit where Daphne, who is Sarah Michelle Gellar in the movie, stumbles across this, and this is not my name. This is what he's called in the film. So I didn't, for any, if this is incorrect politically, it's not on me. I didn't write the character name. The character name is Voodoo Guy, right? That he plays. And Sarah Michelle Gellar goes up to him, and she starts going on and on about going to the spooky castle. And he then gives her a schooling about purple's a fall colour and she shouldn't be wearing it because it's the middle of May. And he's like proper telling her off for wearing purple in the summer. And it's this whole big thing. But when you see him in that, he that's instantly where, when I saw Return of the Living Dead, I knew him from that film. Like, I knew it was the same person. It's so weird. It's such a strange thing, because you look at all the other characters and you're like, well, the guy who played Freddy went on to do some stuff. Obviously, everybody knows. Now, I never get the name right. I'm so sorry. I apologise to everybody. Linnea Quigley. She is one of the 80s Scream Queen. She did a practically naked aerobics video.
She was a playmate, wasn't she? Was she a playmate?
She did put corn.
No. I know that I recognize the name straight away. So the names of the people in the gang are Tina, Spider, Chuck, Casey, Scuzz, Trash, That's it. Yeah. Who was the guy who was just was that Chuck, the guy who was dressed just in the suit?
Yeah,
he was stunning.
The one with the floppy hair.
Yeah, his face was beautiful.
It wasn't
Tina.
Was it Tina he was chatting up? When they were locked together in the room and everything, and she kept saying,
"Is Casey Thingy's girlfriend?"
I think Tina's Freddie's girlfriend, and
right. Casey's... Okay, so Casey's the other one. Yeah. So she, with him, beautiful face, absolutely stunning face. So you get to meet the Groovy Gang, and what do they want to do, Dan?
Oh, they just want to party.
They just want to party. They just want to party. As Casey kept shouting out, "I just want to party, man!" They ended up partying in the graveyard.
Yeah, because they went to go pick up Freddie from work because Tina was waiting for Freddie to finish. So obviously they all get in the Cadillac, and off
does not look like she belongs there, though.
No, she looks lost. But then again, I think it is that whole thing where originally they had her try on. They had like a certain type of costume for her, and she was supposed to fit in with the gang. It was supposed to be like a see-through perspex, not perspex, but like that thick plastic skirt. And they had like all these punky kind of clothing for her, and she just kept saying, "Oh, my character wouldn't wear that, she's too prissy." And so basically they took the costume that Spider was supposed to wear and they gave it to her. So that's originally what Spider was going to wear, but then they put Spider in the army fatiguey type thing, which worked better anyway. So
his hair looked amazing. So we stay with these for a bit, don't we? Because did you notice how hot they were getting?
The sweat on the whole thing was insane.
Yeah.
All
I
of
don't.
them.
I was like thinking, in my head, I was thinking the likelihood is the studio that they're in is absolutely roasting and they just cannot be fucked to keep cleaning them up all the time. Or it's generally effect of what's happening around them.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to stick with that in my head because my God, they were really sweaty. But this is where, what's her name? Trash decides, hey, clothes ain't working for me right now. Let's just take them off.
And I kind of don't blame her. I mean, I'm not anyone who likes, I'm not one of these people who is comfortable enough to walk around with absolutely nothing on. But I kind of,
If I
it was
had
part
that
and parcel
figure,
of her character.
yeah, if I had that figure, I would be. She did that thing entirely naked, the whole movie naked. The one bit I didn't like was her body is absolutely banging. Like that is what she's famous for.
Yeah.
And when they put her in the makeup at the end, it doesn't look the same.
Well, I do know what they did do. This is getting pretty graphic now, so I wouldn't. It's not a trigger warning you need to hear because it's not triggering in any way. And if it does trigger you, go seek help.
Sorry.
But I'm not sorry. Go seek help. This is wrong. It's a female body,
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I didn't know where you were going with it, but you're right.
No, she basically had. We're talking early 80s, so lack of hair was not a thing. It was traditional for women to be very covered in that area, and she was. And they asked her to shave, and she said, "Well, I don't feel comfortable with that because you can see more."
Yeah.
So they said, "Right, okay, what we'll do is if you shave, we'll then go and get a silicone prosthetic made." So
Yeah.
that's why you don't
You
see
can tell.
anything. There is like a cover that's sort of like
It looks like a Barbie doll.
Basically, that was the point. They wanted to make her look like a Barbie doll, like a Ken doll. So there wasn't a definition. So she wasn't completely flashing. So it wouldn't be classed as corn, and the rating wouldn't be really, really bad. But
it was actually good with the lighting. They were very careful with the lighting because they didn't really shine upon that area. They kept it mainly to the top, so your eye isn't directly going to where you think you would go to when you've got this absolutely beautiful naked woman standing in front of you.
She's famous for her bobs and vagine anyway.
She really is. But she really is. I watched a video after the movie, and it was like, more to know about the Return of the Living Dead, and it was talking about her career, and that is what she was famous for. That is why she was picked, was because of that body. That body is unreal. But yeah, she does a great striptease on top of a gravestone, and I think one of them. So they set off flares while they're dancing around, and I think it's so Scuzz.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got some severe burns. Now is such a, for all he very little, very for all he doesn't say much in this movie, he is so big in this movie. He is the stunt guys. He is the puppeteer with the animatronic zombie on the table. He puppeteers her. He is part of the makeup. He's just the guy who fits in when there's nobody else to fit to do that job. So yeah, and he barely says anything. Barely says a word.
Tony Gardner, his name is. And the foreshadowing that you do get though from Trash just before she does her naked dance, where she's talking about her biggest fear is being eaten alive by old men.
Foreshadowing.
And then she does her naked striptease, so you're completely knocked out of the foreshadow before you realize you've even, you don't know saying anything because she then rips the top open and her boobs are out, and they're all like, "Oh, she's at it again." It's not even a thing where they were all like, "Oh no, God, she's naked." It was all like, "Oh, she's just getting naked again," and I loved that. It wasn't a thing. It was just like, "Oh, here she goes again." Oh, God.
Oh, here she goes dancing. It's not the fact that she's got naked. Here's the fact she's gone dancing. But in the 80s, that was a thing. If you watch Trading Places, they're in Eddie Murphy's new house, full on party going on, And one woman just decides, oh, this is it. This is the time. Takes her top off and starts dancing topless. And it's not a big deal. It's not made like everyone's like going, oh, shit, she's got her tits out. It's just, they're just dancing. It's just the party goes on. So and when I saw that happening there, I was like, this must have been an 80s thing.
But it fit. It didn't seem really like a random out of place. We're just going to put this in so she can get naked part. It seemed like that was Trash's persona
thing. Yeah, that was.
It was, it was.
She was.
Her part was written well. I mean, obviously her name's Trash, but like her part was written so well that you were just like you went along with the guys and you were like, oh yeah, obviously this is something she does.
Yeah. Well, after we've been with them for a bit, we then go back into the warehouse, and this is where things start getting a bit fucked up. The first bit of fuckery is the walking through. So they've come around, and they're starting to think, well, what the fuck's just happened here? And they can hear a dog whimpering.
Yeah, I did not
Dan,
like
my hands have gone funny.
Yeah, I do not like it, but
they hear a dog whimpering. And I want to get through this part as quickly as I possibly can. It was a oh God, what help us out? What was it called?
Veterinarian half specimen.
Yep, half specimen, and it came back alive.
So think Damien Hirst, where he does his slices, but literally the dog is in half. And the dog is alive because it's inhaled the gas that came out of the barrels and the bottom, and so have Frank and Freddie and the whole of this unit.
And it's half of them. It's just half a dog.
Yep.
And it's the most freakiest thing I've ever seen in my life, and I don't ever want to see it again. Let's move on. So once that bit's out of the way with, they then start hearing a banging on the door.
And they hear
Arnold groan.
Yeah. Arnold Schwarzenegger groans. If you go back and watch it,
sounds exactly like him.
It does.
And I think the realization is starting to kick in at this point that that's alive in there.
Yes, because he was the only one in the freezer.
And this is where they call Boss Man.
Bert comes back.
Yeah. And Bert's genius idea is, let's torch the place. Let's just torch the place and get out of here. I'll claim insurance. Fuck it. Let's just do this.
To be fair, I can not get behind the idea.
I could see where he was coming from.
But I can see where he's coming from, because if he had, it would have made things a bit worse. But it would have been, it would have been a lot worse, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's a bigger building going up other than what happened. No.
Yeah.
So cut that. No.
Yep.
Isn't it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. But they open the door up to find a reanimated corpse running at them, which I had to keep going back and watching this part because the makeup for us just didn't quite. I got the skin tone because the jaundice. Yeah, I got that because that is that. Sorry, morbid Sam coming back out again, but that is the color your skin goes when you're dead, basically. So yeah, I got that side, but there was some sections of the face I didn't quite understand.
I think it was just like
it looked like the face was like all put together, like in sections. Like this part had a bit of jaundice, but this part didn't because it was just plain white. And I'm like, in an autopsy, they don't touch the face, so it wouldn't make any sense as to. And even in not even autopsies, when in embalming, no face parts touched. But that it just didn't make any sense to us. But I'm not really. That's just me now. That is Monster Sam looking at it. If it was just me, I wouldn't have given two shits. But I know I'm watching this to talk about it.
He also had a silicone prosthetic put to make him a Ken doll, and no one notices that because he's running full pelt at Bert.
Yeah, he runs really fast. That's why running really fast.
Yeah, he runs full pelt at Bert, and the whole point was that Frank and Freddie were supposed to catch him.
Yeah.
But he jumps on Bert, and they wrestle him to the floor, and Bert automatically goes, "All right, you got to get it in the head." So this is where the inception of movie upon movie upon movie.
That's what they tell you. The policeman on the television on Return of the Living Dead says you need to shoot them in the head. It's the only way they'll go down. So I'm sure, I am positive. I would have to go back and rewatch it, but I'm sure they mentioned Return of the Living Dead at the beginning of this movie. I wish I wrote that down.
So in the end, I think Bert puts a pickaxe through Jaundice Corpse's head, and he's still wiggling and thrashing around and going crazy. And you can see Bert and Freddie are making these god-awful noises. They're making some really strange noises. But what I did like, and this is pretty graphic, guys, so I do apologize, but I did like the attention to detail on this bit, was when Bert went and got the hacksaw, and those two are like proper gipping from him sawing off the head. But you hear something that you don't hear normally, which was the like when he was when he was sawing, you heard the gurgle noise, and it was like it was going with the saw, and it sounded like you think it would sound.
Yeah.
And I know it's a comedy, and I know it's probably for comedy effect, but for me that really worked. I was like, oh my god, that's I hadn't thought about that, but that makes sense. It's like
it's quite accurate. I love the comedic outburst between Frank and is it why do I keep getting Frank? Frank and Freddie. Frank and Fred. F and F. I love the comedicisms behind them too. They're not really doing anything, but they are doing everything at the same time because they're flapping all over the place. So once they've got the corpse under control, Bert has the genius idea of calling Ernie, it's because of Freddie, Ernie, who is the embalmer, to cremate, to use the cremation to get rid of said corpse, and all their problems will be all done and dusted, and we can go home and have a nice cup of tea. Clearly doesn't go that way.
No. Did you know how once Freddie, Frank, and Bert have taken the chopped up body to meet Ernie for the first time, they reveal you have the bit where he technically reveals the corpse, but you don't see anything because it's all the bags of the body parts and it's all still moving. Did you know how they made that happen, the moving?
No.
They actually used, now it's a toy from a long time ago. They had a lot of those monkeys with the cymbals. They took the cymbals off so they weren't making noises, but they had loads of them in all the bags, so they were moving around and making it look like they were fidgeting, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. And that's what made them look like rabid weasels.
That is amazing. Well, they don't initially go in straight away with, we've got this body part to cremate. Bert goes in all Jack the Lad and is like, hey, Ernie, how long we been friends, buddy?
25 years.
While Frank and Freddie are sitting in a chair, starting to feel the effects of the gas that knocked them out.
The 2,4,5-trioxin.
Right in the face.
Yes, and did you know 2,4,5-trioxin is actually a real thing?
I did.
And it was used during Operation Orange in Vietnam.
Yes,
and
I did.
That's absolutely fucking atrocious, if you ask me.
It's it's one of the cruelest parts of history. And holy shit, the only reason I remembered that because it was on that video that I watched was I watch a lot of weird shit on the internet.
Yeah.
One of them being people who get angry at other people and videotape it. And someone used against an Asian family that reference was, I think you've had too much Agent Orange. And I was nearly physically sick in my mouth. It is one of the cruelest, heinous things that ever happened. And when they mentioned it on the video, I was like, I went cold. Like, I actually went cold to think about it. But let's get back to the funnies.
Yeah, I mean, so you see them and he's trying to convince him it's a bunch of rabid weasels that came in a shipment, because obviously being a medical supply place, they get a lot of weasels come in, but we'll not go there. And
I didn't realize it was a weasel epidemic.
And he wasn't too happy with the whole idea of burning like live animals, and he was like, no. And then something happened, and I can't remember how the arm gets out of one of the bags. Do they show it to him? I can't remember that
I
bit.
think they have to come clean to him because he's like he's very reserved, is our Ernie. And he's very I don't think he's taken in with the bullshit. So I think they do. I think they show them because it literally lunges at him, doesn't it? Like at his leg.
Yeah,
because it rips
the hand.
Yeah, and it rips his trouser leg off. And it didn't take a lot of it didn't honestly take him that much convincing to do it, mind, after that.
No, I mean, I don't think it would. The only I've got a quick question for you. You know, I couldn't find this out, but you know where he's embalming that body at the beginning?
Yeah.
When we first meet Ernie.
Mm-hmm.
It had lividity, it had all the bruising, it looked like a real person.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a genuine dead body or not? Because I could not
No.
find it. It wasn't. It was a person.
No, it was a person.
Because I could not find that out. I thought the makeup was so well done where they showed all the blood settling in the back and all the bruising around the back. You know, I was like,
believe it. If that were to be a genuine dead person, it would have came up on the video I watched because they went into a lot of detail. That embalming setup was, and the way the stomach. Yeah. Oh, I hate that I know this. I know the full procedure of how to do an embalming because I'm that person. You know, when he was putting it in the bottom and he was shaking it about, that's to burn off the fat cells. So it's to like burn the fat cells off, and then it shakes the fat cells about, and then it plants it where it needs to be. But it's amazing how quickly that body disappeared later on. Yeah. But that's just continuity.
But he also had a Luger, didn't he? I think
yes, he did.
PPK, I don't know. It was one of the two famous German guns.
It's a very famous German gun. I know that.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and so anyway, they convince him to put the body parts in the furnace, right? Yeah. So you're thinking, oh, good, right, okay. The Frank and Freddie are literally leaning up the wall with every last bit of like energy they've got. They're just sat there.
They look ill.
They look very ill. But what I like is that it was like a nod to George's Zombies as well, because of the grey face, you know.
There was to be honest, for something that George never wanted any part of it, but he didn't not wish it well.
Yeah,
he was fine. There was no ill feeling whatsoever. Yeah. So I love the fact that they paid homage to where it all stems from. This part really give me the burst. When he's going, right, well, we're gonna burn this, and then the ash is gonna be there. Well, we don't want the ash. Well, then we'll get rid of the ash. Well, we don't want the bone. Well, we'll get rid of that. Do you know what I mean? He was just nitpicking and nitpicking. It's like, mate, it's a fucking furnace, right? You know what you get at the end of that.
Yeah.
So shut the fuck up and let him get on with his job.
That's when he said to Ernie, turned around and said, well, the bones aren't an issue, but the heart is. That's the hardest bit to burn.
I didn't know that. I want to know if that's true.
Yeah, same. I was like,
because it's not what when a cremation happens. And the only thing that you really get at the end is it the femur? Is it the tibia? It's one of the bones. It's from your hip bone. That's the only thing that's really kind of there. That's it. Nothing else. There's nothing else left of you. So I don't. There's only the ash that you get at the end is just I'm sure it's your hip bone or it's around that area because it's the toughest bone. It's the strongest bone that you have. The heart is never something I have ever come up against when I have watched or read about, and I have read a lot of books on cremation.
Yeah, it was just a really curious thing. He said,
odd.
I don't think that's right. But anyway, obviously they burn it up really, really high heat, and it clips to seeing all the yellowy smoke coming out of the chimney.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
And then so the smoke goes into the air, and then the rain starts. So the rain has soaked in all of the naughty
smoky goodness.
Yeah, and created an acid rain. Which when all the guys are in the cemetery, which is part of where Freddie, Frank, and Bert and
Because
Ernie.
remember, they are waiting for Freddie to finish work.
Yeah, so the rain starts coming down and they all realise it's quite bad. So they all go and run and sit in the Cadillac.
Get the
Trash
roof
is still
off.
naked. There's holes in the roof. And I can't start the door.
No.
Can't start the car. And there's so many holes in the roof, and Trash just keeps getting soaking wet because Scuzz keeps poking more holes in the roof.
I love the fact that she keeps shouting at him though, like, "What are you doing?"
And she's like, "Has anybody got a towel?" And they're like, "Why would we have a towel?"
No.
Good point.
Nobody gives a shit that this girl is naked to the point where it comes down to her being dried off. They don't give a shit about that either.
No, I think it's because she had the option to pick up her clothes and she didn't. She just ran off without them. But yeah, they then decide the best thing to do is run to UNIDA, which is where they run to the factory, and they all get inside. Now, just before this happens, Tina decided, before the rain happens, Tina decides to wander off to see if Freddie's finished work. Freddie's not there, clearly. Freddie is too busy in the funeral home.
This is leading up to one of my favourite parts of the movie.
Yeah, this is the bit where she hears some noises down in the basement because, why wouldn't you go?
Why would you not go down there?
So she goes down and she sees, this is where we're introduced to Tarman, which is, Tarman is a work of art, and I don't care who you are, or where you come from, that is a work of just design genius. Everything about him.
It is breathtaking. There is no part of me that looks at that and goes, "What the fuck am I looking at?" It's like, wow, what the fuck am I looking at?
Yeah.
The design work, the eyes, the characteristics, I will get into my favorite bit because he is part of my favorite bit. But this comes to, so she's getting chased about by Tarman, to when you then get the gang running into the basement, down the stairs, and they're like, "The fuck is that?" Oh no, that's right. He's so clever.
Yep.
Because she locks herself in a, like, what was it? Like a cupboard.
Yeah, just before that happens, where she falls through the step?
Yes.
Now, I heard on one of the many videos I watched and research I did that Dan didn't tell her that step was broken.
I read that.
And he let her naturally fall through it, which I thought was risky. But obviously they'd signed away some sort of disclaimer at some point that he wouldn't get done for insurance if she hurt herself. But she actually did really hurt herself when she landed. She didn't break anything, but she hurt herself. And that's why it takes her so long to get up off the floor, because no one shouted cut. They just kept it rolling.
Wow.
And they're looking at her behind the camera, telling her to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And so she runs into what looks like a filing cabinet.
Yeah, it's a metal cabinet thing, and you think she's got it made in the shade because she manages to lock herself in and stick a broom through the handle, so she's kind of secure. Little does she know, zombie man behind the door has some fucking smarts about him and gets a chain and starts pulling at the door. This is when the gang busts through the door. And there's a sheet up again. There's a sheet in the way for them to actually see what it is that is behind there. Yeah. And this is the greatest moment of this movie, is when they pull back the sheet and they meet Tarman for the first time. And the first thing he fucking says is, "More brains?"
Now, I'm not entirely sure how true this is, because many people claim this same thing. I'm going to say it's true because I want to believe it's true. But this movie specifically is where the trope of brain eating was supposed to have started from.
I could believe that, because Romero's zombies were not brain eaters; they're just flesh eaters. They were just they were just hungry for the arms, the leg. They never went for brains.
Well, that's the thing, because the first thing you see Tarman do with Thirthard is literally latch onto his head and eat his brains.
Oh, he takes a proper chunk, doesn't he?
He really does go for it. And then I think it's Spider chucks a paint can at him.
And that's when he goes. That's when he turns around and goes, "More brains."
And like, it's the look with the eyes. The guy who played him is actually a puppeteer. By now he's a puppeteer, but at the time they wanted an actor, not a stuntman, and his name's Alan Trapman. He's more famous now for doing puppeteering for the Muppets and
Oh
for
wow, what a turn of events.
it did. I don't know. There's a film out, and not a lot of people have seen it, but it's a Melissa McCarthy film, so it's a bit hit and miss. But it's called The Happy Time Murders,
I've seen
where
it.
where she does the puppeteer, where it's puppets and her, and it's an 18, a 15,
Such
18,
an
I think.
amazing idea, but so poorly executed. It was
Correct.
such a goddamn shame because it was the concept, the idea of it all was hilarious.
Yeah.
Just didn't quite hit the mark.
No. So they have this thing where a lot of people claim it's the first place to have said that brain eating comes from there, and we go back to the fact that when the kids managed to run away from Tarman, and they all managed to get to the funeral home apart from two of them. Three of them actually, because they run off back into the cemetery, and then they see that the dead are rising due to the chemical rain that's coming down and soaking into the floor.
That scene where you see it going into the soil and you see that scene twice. You see that here and at the end, and I didn't care because I loved it. I love going down into the soil and then seeing the reanimated corpse come up, and them eyes, that face sculpture is unreal. Like them eyes are so uneasy to look at, but you find yourself not being able to take your gaze off them.
Yeah.
I love the imagery of the faces that they did in here to make it so different, because when you look at Romero's zombies, it's just the person grayed out. It's just a person who has died. This is something so much more supernatural to it, and so it really I was on such a fucking roll.
Yeah.
It just gives it so much distinguished features that it's like, oh, that's a zombie that before I knew Romero is how I would think a zombie was.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the makeup and the design. The concept design of it is just brilliant.
Yeah, it's one of those things where this is where for me it steps up a notch with the two corpses that are the main corpses for me, which is Tarman and Half Corpse Girl. And this roughly a few people die, a few people get lost, people run off.
Trash gets killed.
Trash gets killed by, oh, hang on a minute, a bunch of old dudes eating her alive, which is foreshadowing, obviously, before she. Casey and
Chuck
have got stuck in the factory, and they're being attacked, so they've locked themselves in this little cupboard.
And Spider, Tina, and Scuzz go to the mortuary.
Yes, and they get let in by Ernie. So
and this is where you see how much the illness has taken over Freddie and Frank.
Yes,
did it.
And Ernie was like, okay, we're going to have to call the paramedics, that they're not good. So he calls in and calls it a poisoning, because he doesn't know what else to call it, which is fair. It is a poisoning because
it is.
And then Tina's like making all these horrible, stupid noises. Then they're trying to convince Bert, who's still very, very angry. Like he spends 90% of his screen time angry, Bert.
It comes great into play later on, though.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying to him, there's like 100 corpses out there. There's loads of dead bodies rising out there. They're all in the factory, and that's when he gets really angry and loses his shit. And I'm like, hang on, dude, you wanted to set fire to it about 10 minutes ago, but now you're all right. Now you're angry. There's people in it.
Exactly. Pick your battles, mate.
So they convince him and Ernie that everything is crazy outside.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the hands start breaking through, and they're having to reinforce all the windows and all.
But before that, the paramedics has come.
Oh god, yeah, sorry.
So the paramedic, because they play a bit of a part in this.
Yeah.
Because the paramedics come, and we find out that that they're dead.
Yep.
That Frank and Freddie are dead, but still talking.
Yep.
And still, almost still talking. It looks like at any moment Bert is about. No, Bert, I've done it again. Frank is going to have. It looks like he's going to have a seizure at any given moment. But Freddie kind of is keeping it almost together. he's not. It's almost like Freddy's not fighting it.
Yeah.
And Frank is.
Frank has more self-awareness still than Freddy, even
especially with what happens with Frank.
Yeah, I mean, Freddy, he wasn't fighting it because, as Ernie suspected, he had rigor mortis setting in.
Oh, that's right, because Ernie explains rigor mortis earlier on.
Like all the blood's pooling in his back because he's been laying down. He's got his joints are painful when he's moving it, and like obviously the foreshadowing before when he's explaining about the corpse table, but
something you can massage out of people.
Lack of oxygen in the muscles or something.
Yeah, you can massage it out. You can just I hate that I know this. I'm so sorry, but you can't. They use a lot of soft product like oil.
Yeah.
Just to try and like keep the skin moistured and to get the muscles kind of like just a bit more vigorated, so you can technically rub out rigor mortis. I couldn't choose any other word.
I'm saying nothing. I'm letting that one fly. I'm just gonna let you sit with that.
It's just me all over. If I'm not saying something stupid, I'm doing something stupid.
But yeah, they this is the bit then where the paramedics have come in and they're like, oh god, you guys are literally dead. We can't explain it. And they go out to the ambulance and then they get attacked.
I do love the very subtle way they both switch stethoscopes. Just to make sure that each other's are working right. I just thought that was a lovely, funny touch. Like just so plain and so simple. They just look at each other and just go, swap it over, and then try it.
Yeah, it's like the minutiae and the detail is something that DanOBannon does really, really, really well. And if you watch any of his other written movies, which he didn't direct, but the way that he writes a screenplay is incredibly clever because it's all the little bits, not just the dialogue, but it's the little bits that make sense.
I totally got that from just tiny little bits that go on. It's very cleverly done.
Yeah.
But
then
they do start coming at the windows now.
And that's when we get to see, we say, see you later to Scuzz. Because
Scuzz bites a bullet.
And we get our corpse girl.
But he puts up with decent fight. What I found quite funny about this scene, it was so Benny Hill, the whole they didn't know where to go, didn't know which window to go to. Bloody Ernie starts pulling at a dresser that looks like he could do it all by himself until he realizes that dresser probably is meant to weigh more than what it actually does. And then he's like, give me a hand, fellas.
All I could hear was
it really was, wasn't it? Just the total chaos of there's so many windows, there's so many doors, there's so many there are so many bodies outside trying to get in.
I think it's Spider that says, how many goddamn windows has this place got? And every room they're going in. But yeah, Scuzz gets eventually killed. So we say goodbye to him, but in doing so he pulls through half corpse girl. Now Ernie, being the curious, narshy, experimental,
well, there were a few.
I don't know what we're calling him, but being who he is,
it was very Mangler of him. I don't even you can't even dumb that name down. But that was the job of Joseph Mengele.
Yes,
experimental
the experiments on the twins and stuff like that, and all the weird things they did. But yeah, his curiosity got the best of him, so he put her on a hook and tied her to the table, which I thought it made sense. But I'm like, okay, so she can talk.
So yeah, she can't just talk. She is properly talking. She is not dead talking. She is not. She is full on gorgeous voice, by the way.
Very aware. And very clear, like being in the state of decomp that she was, which we're saying, little bit of flesh left on the bones. It's more than mummified, but obviously it's been rehydrated because of the rain. She's a bit.
She looks, but it's not ever so slight. It's very. You can tell she has been dehydrated.
Yeah, and she's just been watered.
Yeah, she's just been a little sprinkle on her.
Yeah. And so Ernie, like, Spider wants to bash her head in, but Ernie's like, no, we'll
Let's
ask
find
questions,
out.
we'll find out things. And she says, he's like, why do you eat people? And she's like, not people, brains. And he's like, why eat brains? And she's like, well, it takes the pain away. Rotting is really painful. We can feel ourselves rot. It's brains is the only thing that takes that pain away. And then you see a moment with Ernie, which I know this is supposed to be a horror comedy, but you see this moment, this light bulb moment that goes off in Ernie's head, and he's like, the dead can feel being dead. And he's like, I think he gets that pang of guilt from all the embalming and all the stuff that he may well have been doing to these corpses.
The job that he's done. If it's true in what she's saying, is possibly worse than the way she died.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something that I loved about this one as well, was that if you watch it right, you'll see, because she's a puppet, obviously, but you'll see
animatronic.
Yeah, but Tony Gardner, like you said, Scars is the guy who's operating her, and
he's operating her.
You see the bottom of her spine, and what the attention to detail here was, you see cerebral fluid on the table,
and
like
the wiggle,
you see it dripping out, and it's like pooling on the thing. And that's something that people don't think of, because your spine does leak cerebral fluid. It does.
It happens, people. It just happens.
I mean, obviously, not that state of decomp, I wouldn't have thought, but I think we're not in the land of what's real and what's
some facty fiction kind of like going on. Very forgivable, but also it's even if it was past that stage, just to even have that idea is still pretty genius. That scene, I thought the minute she started talking, I was like, oh, I'm going to be sort of taken out of this now. But for some reason, I was so interested in I wanted to know. The minute he started asking the questions of why, I was like, oh shit, okay, yeah, I want to know why. And when she said it was to stop the pain, I could feel my bottom lip going, and I was like, don't do it. Don't you dare fucking cry at this film. I did, but not at this part. It was, I'll tell you in a bit when we get there, but it was just, you don't get to ask that question in Romero's world.
No.
You don't get to ask why they're coming for you and why they want to eat you. And you did here, and I just, even though the voice is very not fitting to how you think she should be sounding, it's still, she drew me in. She got me. Yeah, she did get me.
It was a very sensual.
Oh yeah.
Is that the word?
Yeah, it was an incredibly sexy voice.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. So it wasn't like it didn't take you out of it, because it felt oddly comforting at the same time. Like
it was very calm.
Yeah.
Until she wasn't.
Yeah.
Because you're fucking hungry. Yeah. And she's probably in a seething amount of pain. And then she starts screaming for brains. Brains. Oh, I loved that scene. I loved it because I was actually in shock at first at what I was looking at. I was like, shit, that's really on that table. Like, regardless of how you look at it, that animatronic is sitting on that table.
Because the puppeteer had his hand in her head, as well as like, the spine was being moved by, I think
the eyes
and the eyes were, but the rest of it was being operated by a puppeteer, so to speak. So
I learned a lot about animatronics when I did the Turtle episode for the Sunday podcast. And if my memory serves me right, it's towards the end of the 80s, and Jim Henson did the puppets, the thingies for the suits for the first one.
Yeah.
In the second one, they started to create the technology for the animatronic. And so the animatronic that you get from the Turtles is kind of where it's like the stepping mark of animatronics, but you wouldn't think it watching this and seeing the likelihood is the only animatronic about her is her eyes and maybe her mouth features around here. But it's brilliant. It's absolutely stunning.
So then they move on and decide to put Freddie and Frank in the chapel just in case something's going to happen to them because they have just gone right downhill.
What the fuck is Tina's problem? No, we can't do that. Look at the fucking... He's dead, for one, and look at the state of him. He's starting to look like he's got rabies.
I'm going to stay with him. He's got eyes, as you can see there. That's what he looked like.
Yeah.
That's big, bright, red eyes, and the guy was greyer than white, and he was in no fit state to be sat with, to be honest. So she deserved anything that came to her after that.
Absolutely. She went on fucking ridiculous. Because he does eventually try to eat her.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's on her.
Yeah. that is on her. Where are we up to? This is a bit of a blur now. There's a lot goes on.
Basically, right. So Trash then decides to awake out of the muddy water as a zombie, and they've given her weird features. They've made her look like a vampire-y. I don't know what she was supposed to be. This was the bit where I was just a little bit like, what?
Like fucking... She looked like a TMU version of Gozer. I don't know what was going on with that makeup job. She looked padded.
Yeah, it looked very strange, didn't it? It didn't sort of fit because, and on top of that, when she goes for the homeless guy, she bites his neck.
Yeah, she vampires it.
I was like,
it was a good chomp. I'm gonna give her that, but you want to be going for the brain, sweetheart. That's what you're hungry for.
Yeah, it was a very peculiar choice, but then I was just like, do you know what? Just go with it. Just let it go. But then they keep flitting back to Chuck and Casey, seeing if they're all right.
Yeah, and she's just having an absolute meltdown, isn't she? Bless her heart.
One of the zombies calls for more paramedics. More paramedics turn up, they eat them. They then call for more police. They're becoming more self-aware the more brains they eat. The zombies.
That's it. The paramedics that I said came into play later on. Mm-hmm. It's their radio where it's like, send more paramedics, send more police.
So they have a veritable buffet when 15 police cars turn up, and they eat every single member of every car that turns up.
It's just absolute fucking chaos.
And so then they put in roadblocks.
Yeah.
Try and stop the epidemic spreading out of the city. Problem is, about 150, 200 zombies come charging down the road, and a bit of wood on a tripod isn't really going to stop them. And this is where they also realize that their guns don't work because they're trying to shoot them all. Mm-hmm. Nothing happens, and then you're just left with the fact that they flip back, and then you realize that Freddie and Frank have, well, Freddie more so than Frank. Freddie's gone full zombie.
He's yeah. Whereas this is the part I cried at. This is all the way through it. Frank has looked like he has fought and fought and fought, and his fight was finally over when he decided there was still something there of him to where he didn't want to go out the way, he didn't want to turn into one of them. Mm-hmm. And he had watched firsthand how one had been killed, so he takes himself to the furnace, and it was when he put his wedding ring.
Yeah.
I choked. I'm choking thinking of it now, because it was such a huge thing to do. Like it's one thing saying you'll do one thing in a situation. It's actually doing the act, and he just jumps headfirst into the fucking furnace.
Yep, he pulls himself in. He pulls down the hatch and burns himself, and adds more smoke to the nonsense.
I mean, he doesn't add to the. He doesn't help the cause, but for him in his personal journey, it's now over.
Yeah, 100%, and that's why I think he was more self-aware, obviously, than Freddie. Now, the thing about Freddie was, at the beginning, he wears a Letterman type style jacket, and I don't know if you heard about this bit.
The fuck you.
Yeah, it says "fuck you" on the back of the ones that I've watched. But when they put it on TV, they had to reshoot all the scenes where he wears the jacket.
Yeah.
And on the back of it was television version.
Yes.
Thrown in instead of "fuck you."
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that's DanOBannon going, oh fuck you, you know.
but I can't remember because I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know to look either.
Yeah.
There was another thing as well where they were spraying themselves with Lysol.
Yeah.
To get rid of
The smell of the gas. Yeah.
And Lysol absolutely loved
Yeah.
this as a marketing campaign because it was like Lysol can kill anything.
It was really, I thought it was brilliant. And at this point, Bert and Spider decide to go and jump in one of the police cars to run out, don't they? They go to run out to the police car to go and get the police car to back it up to the funeral home so Ernie and Tina can jump in it and they can all go. But the problem is Bert and Spider get overwhelmed, so they decide to go for help instead. They don't get very far. Did you know originally they asked Leslie Nielsen to play Bert?
I can so see that.
But they didn't want it going so far Naked Gun. So they, you know.
And it would have, because that's the kind of, but would it because we've seen him play serious?
And that's why they wanted him from that version of Creepshow. They loved the creepy Nielsen from Creepshow.
Creepy Nielsen.
Yeah, because DanOBannon was a huge fan of Creepshow, and it was like his inspiration for like the Creeper was one of his inspirations for how to make some of the zombies look the way that they did. There was also another inspiration, which were the mummies of, oh God, now I have written this down and I've sounded it out because it is like it's a pronunciation. They were called the mummies of Guanajuato. Now I apologize.
Oh my gosh, that is a mouthful.
Yeah, I apologize if I've butchered that, but I had to write it down as I was hearing it, and that's what I heard him say. And apparently there's like this bunch of mummies that looked exactly like Tarman did before they broke the seal. So you know when he's like that in the thing, or like that, however he's, you know, you see him before he melts.
Yeah,
that was what he was based off of. So yeah, but yeah, anyway, they drive off and they realize they can't get out of town. Town's fucked to the screwed. They're just absolutely shagged.
They really are. There's one bit that we totally forgot to mention throughout this whole entire movie. The general.
Oh God, yeah, he was boring. That's why
he was very boring, but he does play a huge part at the end. So at the beginning of the movie, you meet this general who has this amazing equipment in his house that's in a beautiful cabinet.
Hates his job. But they are trying to find the gas canisters, and that has been his job for fucking ages. How's your day at work, dear? Shit.
Okay. I've made your favorite for dinner. What is it? Pork chops. I had it for lunch. Oh, you miserable bastard. You absolute miserable bastard. You could have, you know, she slipped away thinking that's something that you're going to really appreciate. You twat.
But that's the thing. I think we were supposed to think about him being just very like so bored of his job because they just can't find what it is they're looking for. Yeah.
But you see him, he pops in and out throughout the movie. Yeah. Back to Bert.
Yeah, well, Bert rings the number, doesn't he? on
so
the
that's so the ring. They start off with they ring somebody else, and it doesn't go. They ring the police, and they realize it's not going to go their way because they're pretty much trapped in this house now. Yeah. There's no way out. They've kind of almost accepted their fate until Bert sees on the side of the tank a telephone number to ring, and he's like, let's ring this number.
Yeah, because what they have to do is to get back down into the basement. Bert, is it Bert or Spider? I think it's Bert grabs a baseball bat and smashes Tarman's head off. It's before they get down into the basement.
It's Bert. He fucking floors them.
And so they manage to get down into the basement, and that's where the only phone is because all the other phones are dead. So yeah, and this is when he makes the calls. So they make it to Unida, Bert and Spider, where they find Casey and Chuck, and the four of them are at Unida now. You've got Trash who's wandering around, vampire Trash, zombie Trash.
Don't know what's going on with Trash.
You've got Tina and Ernie who are still at the funeral home with a dead Frank and a petrifying, I don't know what you want to call Freddy right now, because that's he's a rabid weasel, is what Freddy is.
Yeah, he really is.
They manage to. He breaks down the door and gets out of the room that they put them in. So they manage to hit. Ernie and Tina manage to get into the loft space and kick the ladder away. And so they're hiding right in the back of the corner. But I'm like, shut up. All she kept doing was going, and I'm like, shut up. He won't know you're there if you don't fucking make the noise.
Exactly. She was honestly, she deserved to die.
Mm.
So he rings the number on the side of the drum, which is one of those telephones. If you get it wrong, you got to start all over again.
Yeah,
the turny ones. For all you young'uns, we used to have phones that you had to turn the number.
A dial.
Fucking annoying. My grandparents used to have one. I used to hate using it because I was like, I'll be here for friggin' ever. I really will. And they were tough things, like hard things to turn around. So little tiny fingers, you're like fucking pulling it around. Yeah, so he rings Colonel Glover. Is who he gets in contact. Actually, he doesn't. He gets in contact with headquarters first.
Yeah.
And he tells them their location and like, wait 1 minute. And holy shit, Colonel Glover finally gets the call that he's been waiting all these years for.
Yeah.
They found them. Yep.
And then he goes to his little cabinet, reads something off a bit of paper, and then calls someone else, doesn't he? And you're like,
yeah, and he says, is it a big site? And he goes, no, it's only a small place.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing to him.
Yeah. And then you hear him giving directions and coordinates and like obviously army speak coded message to what you're not sure what it is at first. You know it's a tank, but you don't really know what the deal is with it. So you see the cannon part of the tank move around, the big gun bit. I know it's probably got an official name, so don't come at me for not knowing what it is because war.
Yeah.
Plus not in the army. So you see it go around and you hear the banter between the person that's operating it, that's sitting inside, and the general. And this is the bit where you're like, where the hell are they then? When did he get there? But apparently it's something that's been sat there for
forever.
And it's just a manned station that needs to be manned.
He looks so happy with himself that he got a phone call.
It's just been sat there bored shitless for years. But yeah,
he was a child once.
But now his job's done and he can leave. But yeah, basically the gist of what he launches from the tank is a nuclear blast.
Yeah,
enough to what they thought was going to wipe the town off the map. It doesn't even touch the town that I can tell. You see an explosion, and you see the fallout from the explosion.
Yeah.
But then it goes back to the previous footage when the rain's coming down.
Because the explosion starts the rain.
Yep.
That already has the smoke in the air after this explosion goes off.
And they're like, don't worry, the rain will put the fires out. Yeah, they say, don't worry, the rain will put the fires out.
Well, the rain doesn't, because the rain seeps back into the soil and you get that beautiful scene that ends the movie with the zombie face and the eyes staring at you. What a fucking brilliant film.
It's the soundtrack as well is absolutely...
Oh, I have the soundtrack listings.
Yeah, you've got the Cramps. Now, people who might not know who the Cramps are, if you've seen the more recent Wednesday that was released with Jenna Ortega, the Cramps are responsible for the song Goo Goo Muck, which she does the dance to in the middle that became really famous.
Yeah.
That everybody associates with Gaga, but that wasn't the song that was playing. It was the Cramps, Goo Goo Muck.
Yeah.
Which some people don't know, but
if you got this fuck and know your LA history, you know the Cramps.
And then you've got the Tall Boys are on it. You've got the Damned. You've got I want to say
Blackberries.
SSQ, is it?
Yeah, SSQ. There's a couple of songs by SSQ in there. TSOL, 45 Grave, who did Party Time.
Yeah.
You've got 45 Grave and the FUs.
Yeah, because I think, is it SSL that did the song that Trash dances to?
Trash's theme is SSQ.
Yeah, so originally that wasn't supposed to be the song. They had a different song, and it just didn't work. No matter how many times they tried to do the dance, and so they binned that song off, and then they got
Yeah.
this song in that we know. And if you hear it, if you listen very, very carefully, when she rises from the dead, it's very faint in the background, and it's like it's not an acoustic version, but there's no big beat to it. It's just the vocals when she
Yeah.
rises out of the water, and then when she's walking down the path out of the cemetery, you hear it again then. But yeah, I mean, I will say that this film ticks every box for an 80s movie.
Yeah.
And still
100%.
manages not to insult the
No.
source material. It in its own way, it's added to it, because even John Russo decided to use this screenplay treatment and released a second book. So there are two books with the name Return of the Living Dead that are two completely different stories. The original story that he wrote, yep, the original story he wrote before Dan touched it, and then Dan's version.
Yeah.
So there are two books. So if you're a collector,
there you go.
there's
Recommendations.
Yeah.
Recommendations. It's so, you are right, it is so 80s, it is so of its time, but I love the added lore that is added into a zombie universe. Like, I was pretty much a snob when it comes to my zombie movies. Like Romero, Till I Die, you know, you can't do any better than The King. I kind of been proven wrong in this case. And I know there's I have to keep reminding myself Romero didn't create the zombie. Like he may have started the zombie genre,
Yeah.
but the idea of the zombie story doesn't come from him. We can take that right the way back to White Zombie.
Yep, Lugosi.
Yeah, it's with Lugosi. So I have to keep reminding myself, none of the be all and end all. Sorry,
No.
Romero, I love you, but this has kind of opened my eyes to, like, maybe I should be not looking at, because every zombie movie or zombie television show I watch, I always go back to, well, Romero wouldn't have done that.
This is the thing. I do enjoy all the different types of zombies from all the different type of genre zombie movies you can get. I love your slow movers, I love your runners, I love your infected rather than zombies, but they're in that ballpark.
Yeah.
I love and they are in that ballpark, regardless of what people say. Well, they're just infected. Well, they're not. It's proof that they're dead, because anyway, other films. But I love this one because they don't shamble. They're not your shamblers. And they are very much just after that one thing, which is just the brain. They don't care about the rest of the body, so they're not after that. It's I think that's the thing. It's that level of, we've been fed the Romero zombie as a connoisseur of horror movie. Yes, you do, we know about White Zombie, we know about Lugosi, but the one that we always revert back to is the Dawn of the Dead, or those movies are the ones that we revert back to, because that is where we know that the majority of people think, okay, well, that's where the genre started. And I just love the fact that every time someone's come along and done one, they've done it in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
The only one that I do have a few issues with is when Tom Savini remade it in the 1990, I think it was, 89, 90. And
well, that's what I thought we were doing tonight initially, because I don't know why. I'm not to say I have not heard of it, but it's just not something that's kind of like crossed my path. Because again, I'm a bit of a snob. And when you said we were going to do Return of the Living Dead, it wasn't until last weekend when you put the picture up behind you to remind us what the episode was going to be. I genuinely thought that's what we were doing. And when you said this one, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just so different from the Romero ones, and it has a place, this film.
But it's a good difference.
Yeah.
It's a kind of like, it's a fun way to have a good time in a zombie movie. Because Romero, you've got to remember when Romero,
there you
my
go.
good God, remember, people, I have been to work for 10 hours today. Romero did Night of the Living Dead. That was really serious, and there was a lot of like very deep undertones in there, especially with the whole using the
Racism.
the racism, the black man taking a lead on it. Like there was some big stuff going on in that movie.
Yep.
And then that's what you associate. I keep going to point at me picture. That's what you associate the zombie genre with, because of how serious that one is and how serious Dawn of the Dead is. Like, there's a few light-hearted moments. What is the matter with me? Light-hearted moments in Dawn of the Dead, but it's not to the degree of what you get in here. This is just, it's got a strong story for starters. It's very meta in its story. It plants the seeds. There's a lot of foreshadowing that goes on, which the direction in it is so cleverly done that you can't even take in what you've just seen, because you're moving on to something else crazy that's going on. But then you remember
in a good way.
Yeah, it was too late to text you, because I sent Dan a screenshot of the opening titles and like, I'm doing it. And it was too late to text you. I think it finished dead on midnight.
Yeah.
And I was like, who do I talk to? What do I do? How do I cope with this? Oh wait, you're recording a whole episode for it.
Yeah, honestly, it is one of those things where you watch it, and I think my zombie movie knowledge is better for watching the film. But it's fun, it's camp, it's great. It's every bit. Like Shaun of the Dead was a relief, because it wasn't something that anybody had seen in a long time.
Yeah,
I mean, he calls that a zombie rom-com, a zomcom or something, doesn't he?
Yeah, it was different, and it was a breath of fresh air from a very serious tone that we had for such a long time when it comes to the zombie genre.
Yeah.
So when the likes of this comes around and Shaun of the Dead, it's kind of like, oh, don't have to take this so bloody seriously. Like, come on.
That's what Simon Pegg and Nick Frost did when they sat down to do it. They were like, we love the idea of that, but we're not touching that with a barge pole, because that's that. We're going to do George's, but we're going to make it ours.
Yeah.
And make it typically British at the same time, which then takes it in a different direction. So
what's lovely about them both is that they're a tribute to where the genre came from, and it's not, and that's all it is. It's a homage. It's a tribute. It's a almost a sign of respect.
Yeah, because George asked both of them, and they ended up they did a cameo, didn't they?
He loved it that much.
Simon and bloody Nick. They did a cameo in one of the Dead.
It's one of the old. It's one of the newest. No. It's one of the. It's one of the newest ones he did.
Land of the Dead.
That's it. It's one of the newest ones that he. I say newest ones. God, he's been dead for ages. So he's not making any now. Stop, Sam. I was going to say something. Oh, that's right. That's so weird that you brought up Shaun of the Dead. It's celebrating its 20th anniversary this year.
Yeah, 25th. I'm sure
25th.
25th.
25.
Might be 20th. You might be right.
I am not that old, Dan. It is. Oh, it's on one
20.
of these.
It is 20. You're right, 20.
Oh, hey. Oh, it's my nephews are very the part of a generation that don't get phased by a lot of things. Like I've shown them I showed them Lost Boys, and they didn't even fucking bat an eyelid. And when we watched Shaun of the Dead, my middle nephew, I hope to God he's not listening to this, but my middle nephew freaked the fuck out, like badly freaked out, because it was the first time it was real.
Yeah.
The streets were streets he recognized. There was he took it. He was like, no, it's too real for me. I don't like this. Turn it off.
Brilliant. But yes, all in all, I would say for me, and my personal feelings on this film is, for a 1985 zombie, it's a zombie masterpiece. It is a 4.5 out of 5 for me.
Oh, I'm gonna hail it a 5 out of 5. Like, I know we don't do rating scores on here, but I'm doing it. I am doing a 5. Like, this was everything I wanted and more. It's actually everything I didn't know I want, actually. I didn't realize that I needed it. Now it's kind of like I don't ever want it to leave me.
Yeah.
I want to go back and I want to see all these little bits that I've missed out. To be honest, I actually missed what do you call her name? What's her name? Why can't I think of her name? I've just been saying it 2 minutes ago. Scuzz's death. I missed it. I went to the toilet.
Yeah, it's very quick.
And I didn't dare pause the film because I'd already lost me version of it when I tried to rewind it. So I was like, no, just leave it. I ran to the toilet and back again. So yeah, I want to see the little bits that I've missed. I want to see all the design, like all the monsters. I want to see Tarman again.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it took for the guy who played Freddy to campaign for it to go out on DVD, and it didn't get a DVD release until 2000.
Yeah.
I want to say it was around about then. And now it's got a 4K Ultra Steelbook. The whole full boon has gone out on it. But there is a little fact that there was a certain very, very, very famous person that has nothing to do with horror apart from one film he starred in, but whether you class it as horror or satire, I don't know. There was this film once called Return of the Killer Tomatoes.
I remember
that young
that.
man in that film who's the son of Rosemary Clooney, Mr. George. Mr. George used to roommate with the guy who played Freddy.
Nephew of Rosemary Clooney.
Nephew. Yeah. So he used to be Freddie's roommate in real life. So George and Freddie used to spend a lot of time. So George was on set a lot during the making of this film. And this film was only being shot for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But 2 weeks prior, Dan was such a stickler. He wanted them to, he literally made these guys act this movie out over and over and over again for 2 weeks prior before the filming started, because he wanted the relationship. He wanted to have these guys. Chemistry. He wanted to know them, to anticipate what that person was going to do before they did it. He wanted them to know so they didn't have to keep reshooting and resetting and all that sort of stuff when they had the amount of like with Tarman and the amount of stuff that Tarman had, you know, like all the special effects, because I found out that the stuff that they made Tarman with was called methocel, and methocel is the ingredient into milkshakes. And guess what other movie they use that for? The Blob.
Oh my god, 2 weeks in a row we've managed to get, and it's not me bringing it up either.
No, the methocel is literally the ingredient they put in milkshakes to make it globulous, that sort of thing. And that is exactly what Tarman is covered in. So they didn't want to have to keep resetting for the film.
He looks so glossy and lovely and shiny. I love it. Isn't it? I thank the Blob for quite a lot of things, because I feel like it was the eye opener I needed to stop looking at front covers and going, that looks shit.
The Blob was just an unexpected surprise.
Oh, wasn't it? We hadn't stopped talking about it, and that was at the beginning of the year.
It just keeps creeping back in, and that's the thing. It was never something that was on my radar, even though I knew most of the films we've talked about since. In probably about, I would say, 50% of the films we've done since the Blob, they all relate back in some way, or they're in.
Our whole episode structure changed on the back of that episode, because initially we were just going to do the original one.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we do old movies. Why would we not do the classic, you know, goopy one? And
it was awful. And we both went,
If we just had to do that episode alone, that'd have been like 15 minutes. It's shit.
Yeah. The end.
Well, I'm all out. I didn't. Do you know what? And I thought I took down more than what I did, but I really didn't. I've concentrated on all the wrong things.
The thing is, we can always revisit a film again later on down the line if we feel like we've missed massive chunks because we were getting carried away with enjoying the movie.
Yeah.
But then that's fine. It's great to be able to get swept up in a film because this is why we're doing this. This is why Monsters is so much fun, because you're rediscovering things you haven't seen in so long, or you're discovering a whole film that you've never seen before.
Exactly. Or you're me, who just doesn't watch fuck all and is getting an absolute education over here. Like, it's crazy to think how, even just from like when I started Nerdy Up North, or started with Nerdy Up North, I knew fuck all. Like, I knew shit because that's what I do. I find out useless information and it just retains in there. But I hadn't seen anything to back it up. Now I'm like, seen that, seen it. Return of the Living Dead, seen it. I've been telling everyone at work about it.
Yeah.
I was like, if you want a really good fucking zombie film, this is the one you need to watch. Because it's changed my opinion on the rest of the zombie genre.
Yes.
I feel like I would like to go back and revisit, and I know people might think I'm stupid for saying this, but go and revisit World War Z. I know, but it's the likes of that kind of movie though, just to see what it is that I've like turned my nose up against, and was I right too, or was I wrong too? I even turned my nose up at 28 Days Later. Because that's
you need to revisit 28
exactly. So there's, because of my love for that movie, it's that movie alone. Like, I love Return of the Living Dead, but Dawn of the Dead is one of, I'm sick of pointing at you. You're starting to actually become like with me now.
See, mine will always be this one. Mine will always be Return. It will always be, because it has everything that I love in a film. It has the horror, it has the comedy, it has the unabashed nakedness of people. It's got a little bit of something for everyone.
Yeah, I feel like I need to put that up here now. Like, I've got space up here. I think I need to find that movie poster and put it up there. Yeah, it's so cool. So, I'm done. I've got no more.
All good.
So next week, brum brum.
We're going for a double feature, but not in the way we have done.
No, we're going for an actual Grindhouse production. Did you say production?
Yeah.
And the brum brum should have given it away. It's actually a more recent Grindhouse production. We are going down the Tarantino and Rodriguez route, and we're doing Planet Terror and Death Proof. Not gonna lie, I kind of fucking wait. And the funny part is, I really fucking love Death Proof.
Yeah, the two, Planet Terror for me. So
there you go. I love Death Proof for everything female related. I just fucking love it. So yes, next week we're going. Is it a Grindhouse production, or is it just part of Grindhouse?
I think it's a Grindhouse movie.
Right. Got you.
I think I could be wrong.
Maybe this is what I need to do, is to look into more in depth into the Grindhouse thing. Yeah, I feel like that's going to be part of my research, is to look into that. So we've got loads and loads and loads to talk about next week. But you can find us every Monday on YouTube at 8 o'clock. The audio for this episode and all other episodes associated with Nerdy Up North come out on a Tuesday. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe on the YouTube. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. If you are listening to us on Spotify and iTunes or anywhere else, let us know. Leave us a comment. Leave us a review. Leave us a rating. Tell us you like us. Tell us just leave something. It helps the algorithm and helps new listeners come in and find us. That's if they want to. But we're there. The links, thank you. The links for Bleeding Marvelous, Monsters Up North, and Monsters Up North, and Nerdy Up North.
It's late. It's late, people. It's very late.
My brain is absolutely fried. Is all available where, Dan?
Down there.
Look at pretty nails. It's a shame audio people can't see how pretty your nails are.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Is that it? Have I done it all? Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Well, if there's nothing else left to say goodbye, Dan.
You mean the movie lied? Bye, Dan.
Stay spooky, everyone. Bye.
Bye.